Well, good morning if you are in Seoul, Korea, South Korea. Good afternoon if you are in traffic in New York City, where my wonderful guest is stuck in a taxi cab. So she will join us for the first part from the taxi cab and then later from her destination. Good evening to people all over the world. Happy New Year. It is January 3rd, 2025. And I concluded 2024 with a legendary guest with Frederica von Stade. And I wanted to start the new year with a new artist, with someone who is young but already has staked her claim to performing leading roles in the leading theaters of the world in Paris and Munich and Glyndebourne, and especially here in New York City at the Metropolitan Opera. Hera Hyesang Park, who is originally from Seoul, South Korea, is a soprano who has very quickly um, taken on leading roles. And I want to talk to you a bit about that. But number one, Hero, welcome. And welcome to New York City traffic. From behind, I can see that the car is moving very slowly.
Every time it's stopping, every time, every
And
meters is
please
stopping.
thank your driver for being silent. I appreciate that so that
Thank
we
you.
can talk. So, Seoul, how many people are in Seoul, South Korea? It must be a very big city too. I've never been there.
Yeah, it's I think like 5 million or something like that.
So, do you have traffic there the way you do here that you're stuck in traffic now?
Oh yeah, the Korea like the traffic is also very serious, and then from one place to go to another place, it takes forever. For example, like last time when I performed with Placido Domingo, we are performing
Mhm.
in one of the biggest stadium in Seoul. And from the hotel to the stadium to go there, of course they put the most beautiful hotel nearby, but it still
Mhm.
took like more than an hour of the traffic. And then I remember the maestro was complaining so much about like the Korea traffic is like really like out of this world. And I thought I imagined, and he knows about it. It's really a lot. But New York, it's the same. But I'm happy that I'm in New York. It's really nice to be here.
Well, I have been officially, I've been to South Korea, but I've not been to Seoul, believe it or not. Um,
You should come.
I plan to. I forget the name of the island, but there it's like a
Jeju,
honeymoon island. I don't remember
Jeju
the.
Island.
It's a honeymoon island. It's very beautiful. I was not
Yes,
on a
yes.
honeymoon, but I was working in China and then I was working in Tokyo, and I decided to take a ship that would sail so I could get to some sense of the sea in that part of the world. Because I was in China on what happened to be a major birthday for me, and then I had a long contract in
Oh,
Japan. So yes, I've been to South Korea, but no, I've not been to the capital, to Seoul, or to most of the country. So I do plan to go back. But
yeah.
my first question for you, because you are my first Korean guest on Fred Plotkin on
Oh,
Fridays,
really? What an
um,
honor. Thank you so much, Fred.
South Korea um, is kind of like Finland and just a couple of other places in the world. It's an opera superpower. And
Oh, you think
relative to
so?
the size of the population, um, South Koreans have made their names all over the world. I was researching your coming here, and there was one cast that you were in, I think in Hamburg, Germany, in which three cast members at the Hamburger Staatsoper were
Oh,
Korean.
yeah. Yeah.
And, wherever I go in the world, I find Finns and I find Koreans, and they
Yes.
have very prominent places in opera. Why is that?
I think we have such a voice and such a soul to deliver our spirit into the music. I personally believe that my being is like heritage from my ancient spirits. And our history in Korea was also pretty tragedy in a way that we were conquered by Japan and China. We are always in the middle. And because of that, historically, we also suffered a lot. But people in Korea has a lot of positive energy, but to deliver these positivities, I think they used music. So when I was young, we were learning some kind of music in school that many people sang together, and the one soloist singing one big line, and the last chorus member are repeating the same melodies over and over again to support this the story of the melody. I think that's how I saw that this is the way to navigate our emotions and our soul through the music. And because of this like strong um, history of this like love of the music, we really enjoys all kinds of music, not only the classical opera or classical instrumentalist music, but also K-pop is really popular, and the traditional music is very popular. Not even K-pop, like around like 80, 90, like a bolero kind of music is also very, very popular in Korea. So without the music, Korean can't explain, I guess. So I think that's the reason. And also maybe because of the war, lots of missionary people came to Korea to help us. And
Hmm.
because of that, we have a lot of Christianity, like many
Yeah.
Christians and many, many churches. Every meters we have a churches, and in the church we of course sing together, so we also have like big gospel culture, surprisingly. And I also happened to be in church when I was young, and I learned how to sing. I enjoyed it, this kind of gospel music, when I was young, and that's how I, yeah, became an opera singer basically. I
So
guess
in
so.
gospel music, I assume you mean African American type gospel music,
Yeah,
or
but it translated into Korean way,
yes, that was my
or
question. Is it English or Korean? Okay. Yeah.
yeah, in Korean.
Yeah.
And so I know all this like carols or like, yeah, chants, but more like Protestant kind of music also. We sang a
Okay.
lot like with a proper voice of like operatic singing, in the choir. But also lots of dancing, lots of clapping, like a fun music at the same
Hmm.
time. So we had both. We had both.
I know it's common when talking about the big musical superpowers of Asia that we talk about China, Korea, South Korea, and Japan. There are others, of course, but those are the big three. And you make an interesting point now. In China and Japan, they're not necessarily practitioners of Christian or Western religions. Whereas
Hmm.
in Korea, I know many Korean Christians myself here in New York.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I wonder whether, and it's hard to speak for a whole nation, but whether Koreans who happen to be Christian or are familiar with Christianity connect more to the themes in Verdi, in Wagner, in Puccini, in Gounod, and other composers where there are strong Christian elements in the opera stories.
Yeah, so true. I agree with you
Huh.
100%. I also have a lot of friends, singers friends who has a priest father or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of church communities in Korea supports the opera singers when
Hmm.
they go to the abroad to study. I also got the personal like support from one of the member of the church. The person helped me to pay like a flight or something like that when I was young. So I think the community helped a lot in the church to make the career for the
That's a
opera.
very interesting insight that I've never thought about. I've always wondered why Korea, and I think that's one of the answers now that you mention it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's one of the answer. Yeah.
but also, I really don't talk about genetics and so on, but I have noticed that there are certain countries in the world, Korea being one of them, Ghana and Nigeria being others, where a disproportionate number of people have beautiful voices. Even if they're not singers, they have beautiful
Mm,
speaking voices. There are a couple
mm,
of other places too, but those are the main ones. So that when I began working in the Metropolitan Opera in the 1980s, we already were having Korean singers arrive. It was still new. Now there are
yeah.
many, many. And I want to ask you about one of them particularly because she's the first Korean that I worked with in opera. And you played Amor in Orfeo ed Euridice, and it's a cast of three, and Orfeo was the wonderful Jamie Barton, and the Euridice was the wonderful Hae Kyung Hong. And she was
Yes,
really the first Korean in
yes,
opera in a way. I mean, not the very
yes,
first, but she was the first star, and she's had a very long career and
correct.
beautiful vocal preservation, and has sung roles in her, I'm guessing, her age around 60, that many singers cannot sing at 50 or 45. So that I guess my first question is, when you were singing Amor in Orfeo e Euridice, you had the smallest of the three roles, but it was an important role. How did you know Hae Kyung Kong before for her work? How did you interact with her, and what did she pass on to you?
Music all the time. She had been my idol, and she is still my idol. She was just a figure for me. When I'm thinking of the opera singer, I only was able to think of
So we are
the career
breaking
at
up a
that
bit. Okay.
time.
Hmm.
It was, I'm sure, I don't want to go too deeply about all the racism or political issues. I trust when I do what I need to do and I focus on what I need to do, what I love to do, then eventually my time will gonna come. That's my philosophy because I don't want to sit into all these kind of things that can be explained in a different ways. But I understand that this could have been so difficult for her to make a career that far and that much, that long, with such a graceful gratitude. And she made it. So, of course, I'm so proud that she went that far. And then, because of her journey, I, as a next generation, was able to go farther than her. And then next generation will gonna go farther than me. And the more people will gonna come uh, farther
Yeah,
for the future of the opera, only because she fought it. She made it happen, and she dedicated her life to that, and I really appreciated it. So it was very inspiring to see her being on the stage, really focusing her like artistry and technique, the beauty of the soul. Sorry. Yeah, I can just get off in the corner. Now I'm arriving to.
okay. So, listeners, what we're going to do, here I will go to the place that she's going to, and I'm going to briefly pause the conversation, and she will let me know when she's ready to be back in touch, and
Um,
then we'll pick up.
yes, maybe in like 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Give me
All
a
right.
little bit of
You
minute.
will
Thank you
be
so
back
much,
in
sir.
touch with me. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome to New York,
Well,
by the way. This is like a beautiful Park Avenue of this grand.
all right. Thank you. So
All right.
walk carefully. Take care. It's bad weather out. It's January. Take care.
Thank you so much. Give me a minute. I'll be there in a second.
All right. Okay. So in the meantime, this is unusual. That's a new year, a new way of doing a broadcast live from New
Well,
York City.
no, I love it. Yeah, guys, this is New York. Wow, yellow cab. This is so awesome. Look at this. It's actually beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is.
Isn't it
Thank you.
beautiful?
It is. It's a wonderful sight to see that. So
You
you
can
are on,
see.
looks like Park Avenue. It's two
Hmm.
lanes. Okay. Park Avenue. Very good.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
this is the life of a modern opera singer. She takes her broadcasting with her. She has to take
Yes.
care of business on a day. She sang last night. She sang Pamina. By the way, Hera Hyesang Park is currently starring in The Magic Flute at the Metropolitan Opera, singing Pamina with a wonderful cast. And I went to an earlier performance, and it was really gorgeous. And it's
Thank
the
you.
production that was done originally by Julie Taymor, and it was originally
Yes.
done in German. but the Met adapted it to make two versions. There's a version that's in German with different scenery that's wonderful too. It comes later in the season. And then there's this classic Julie Taymor production with great costumes and a different approach that has been adapted for, I don't want to say for children, but it's been adapted for audiences who might not traditionally go to an opera at night. And the
Hmm.
man who did the translation was a friend of mine, J.D. McClatchy, Sandy McClatchy, who was at Yale University. And he's unfortunately no longer with us, but he did a wonderful English language translation that I find, I'm not a singer, but I find it very conversant and it goes with the music. And so Hera Hyesang Park is singing in English with a large cast that is from many different countries. And the performance I went to was sold out, and there were children and parents, and for many people, it was their very first attendance at any kind of opera. And so I think that you, because people will have kept their programs, 20 years from now, a young adult will go to the opera and present their program to you saying, "You were my very first opera star." So this is how it works. So now you are settled in a place. We're not telling the public where you are, what you're doing, because you're there for a work-related thing. But
Yes,
that
I'm here.
transition was just perfect. Very well. So we were talking about Hei Kyung Hong. Um,
Yeah.
I just want to ask more about her because I got to
Yeah.
work with her a lot, and she's very lovely. And
Yes.
I remember that when she would appear, because she was the only Korean opera star at the time in the 80s,
Hmm.
that many Koreans, many of whom lived in parts of Queens in New York City, would turn out at the opera. And it was a big Korean event in New York City. And
Right.
at that time, and this is no secret, many Koreans who had just arrived to New York 40 years ago, the only work that they could find was running fruit and vegetable markets. And when I was a young man, almost all the fruits and vegetables that one would buy in New York City were sold by Koreans. Now they've moved,
Oh.
they've become doctors and lawyers and opera singers and professors and everything. But the entry job for Koreans 40 years ago were fruit and vegetable sellers. Now there's
Wow, I
like
didn't
Korean
know.
restaurants on 32nd Street. Koreans have a very prominent part in New York City's community or ethnic fabric. But very specifically back then, it was Koreans who were selling the fruit and the vegetables. So what I remember
Hmm.
well as the performance manager is that Koreans who followed Hae Kyung Hong would arrive with bags of fruit to the Metropolitan Opera House. And normally
Mm.
I would have to say you're not allowed to bring that. I would just say to them, don't eat in the auditorium. But if you want to bring your fruit because it was their meal. And
Hmm.
people who went backstage, maybe some of them brought fruit to Hey Kyung Hong. But it was
Oh.
very particular because, they would get to know me and they would hand me an orange or a plum or two bananas. And
Mm. Mm.
my memory always was that when Hey Kyung Hong was singing, I had fruit salad the next morning for breakfast because
Mm.
he would be giving me all this fruit. So
Oh.
it's a very particular memory, and now she's very established in the Korean American community here in New York. Um,
Mm.
but what, if any, advice did she give you about navigating the career or about living in New York City as a young Korean woman?
Um, she was very graceful during the whole rehearsal weeks. Very quiet. She drank the Coca-Cola or like ice with
Hmm.
ice water
Hmm.
to, I don't know, like I'm just drinking the normal temperature water, but she always put the ice in
Yep.
the water or Coca-Cola for like preserve her voice. That was very
Hmm.
unique for me. Uh, and that was kind of like it. It was very sweet. I found it was very sweet. She because I'm talking about the diva, here.
Hmm.
So one of those days we were doing the musical rehearsal, And the maestro was asking her to interpret in a different way, different
Hmm.
phrase, different dynamic, and things like that. And me as a young artist, if the maestro is asking me to do certain things, I will say like, "Oh, sure, okay, let me try again." And they're like, "Oh, I will sing immediately, try to do the new version of what he wants." But here, Tae Hong said like, "Okay, sounds great. I'll work on myself and I'll come back to you." Instead of saying that, "Okay, let's do it again," because that's what people expect nowadays. But then she
Yep.
said, "I will work on myself. I got you, but I'll come back. We can talk about it later." And I found that I didn't feel that that's like a arrogant diva attitude.
Mhm.
I found that it's like protecting our instruments in the most vulnerable and beautiful way. And and then I'm sure that she works hard because every time when I went to the performances, she came like hours before and warmed up very slowly and stayed it until the end after everybody left already the theater. I really valued that she always takes her time, always being so gracefully um, sharing her thoughts and idea instead of being so busy to please other people. That really I learned so much. The dignity and the humbleness, but like getting the like owning the power of her own. That's something that young artists like at the time, like me, um, miss, a lot of the time because we are so living in this busy world, and every time we're just here to prove that we are good. We have to always check what other people think. At the same time, we also have to think what we think about our instrument. But when you're in this kind of theaters like the Metropolitan Opera or like Scala or Covent Garden, Vienna Chateau for Paris, let's say, all these theaters, it's very, very difficult to be yourself. And
Hmm.
she taught me that, you know?
Yep.
So since then, I think I gave up or like gave up. I was done being a young artist. Since then, I learned I will focus on my soul, my spirit, and what I want. But I will always deliver with the gratitude.
Hmm.
That's what I learned from her so much. That's very Taoism kind of
Yep.
heritage that we got as an Asian. Sometimes I get really nervous or surprised when Westerner people are putting their hands in their pocket and sharing their opinions with the maestro. Like, I don't know. This kind of attitude make me a little nervous.
Yep.
But when I see this kind of way of gratefulness and a very elegance, I can get along with that. So that really helped me so much.
So, listeners around the world, and especially in South Korea, welcome back to my conversation with Hera Hyesang Park, wonderful soprano from Seoul, South Korea, who is in an undisclosed location on Park Avenue in New York City, having run from a taxi cab and done this conversation in rainy weather, which I'm very admiring of, and then we had to rejoin. So, what I didn't say before, because I was so happy to start the new year, was to listeners, welcome to Fred Plotkin on Fridays on Adagio, the place where classical music happens. Adagio is a video and audio streaming platform dedicated to supporting artists and to making classical music and opera available to fans all around the world, including South Korea. So, Hira Hyesang Park, welcome back. Good to
Thank you
see
so
you.
much.
We're going to pick up our conversation where we were. We were talking about the evolution of opera in Korea, but also Korean opera singers in the world, especially Hae Kyung Hong, who was the first great Korean opera star at the Metropolitan Opera, and what you learned from her. But you mentioned something else that I wanted to talk to you about regarding that. The very first time I heard you, you were still a student at Juilliard.
Oh,
And
wow.
You know,
Long ago.
I have not that long ago. It's like 8 years ago. And I had my finger on the pulse. Actually, it's 2025, 9 years ago now. Um, so, and I had heard about you from Speranza Scapucci, the conductor, who
Yes.
has gone on to conduct at the Met, and she was conducting you in La Sonnambula. You played Amina, the leading role at
Yes.
Juilliard, and I remember thinking, I need to know who this young woman is. I've heard other people like Emily D'Angelo and I cannot pronounce his name, Jakub Orlinski, the wonderful countertenor, and Julia Bullock. Always at Juilliard, people tell me this performance, you have to come hear a particular young singer. And you were
Um,
one of those people where people said to me, I had to come hear you, and I was very happy I did. So even before you debuted at the Metropolitan Opera, and I heard you at the Met, um, I heard you at Juilliard. Talk about, you're still very young. And so you were very, very young when you were at Juilliard. The experience of arriving from Seoul, South Korea to New York City, entering this very famous institution, and doing very well.
mm, well, I really would not imagined that this is my life right now. I was just very simple, normal girl. My family was very normal, class, and I don't want it. This is also a very private story. My childhood was not so easy, so I didn't dream to be in Juilliard or anything close to that, or even the Met Opera. I was thinking to myself that my life maybe will be done in Korea,
Hmm.
and just doing the housekeeping, some kind of job that I am very good at. Just like I assume that I'll be just normal girl who gonna get married, eventually have kids and making a beautiful family. But when I was young, I really, really loved singing, and I loved being in the theater. I loved being on the stage, sharing my secret, my darkness, my pain through the voice. It was a really detoxicating experience
Hmm.
for me. Whatever I went through in my life, when I was singing on the stage, it just helped me to be able to open my soul and without telling what is going on in my life.
Yeah.
And that was super nice and such a great feeling. But yet I never assumed that I'm a good singer, but I knew that I have something that I can offer to the world, my story,
Hmm.
through the voice. And when I went to Juilliard school, I just I was so I was just so overwhelmed and so happy because I suppressed my emotions and myself in Korea so much because again the Daonism culture. My
Hmm.
parents taught me don't share your emotions, don't share your opinion, don't don't talk about your story. Try to be humble. No one is interested in you. Like just just do your thing and be quiet. But I knew inside in me that I have so many things that I can give, that I have so much talent. I have a voice, but why I have to suppress this so long, so hard. But when I went to Juilliard, people wanted to hear that. People wanted to see who really I am. So I was able to really shout out and let myself being wild and enjoying every single moment of me being so vulnerable. And
Hmm.
people loved it. People bought it. People were curious about the story that I had, and they started to tell me that you are a monster. You're a stage monster. You have you have such an energy. Your eyes are burning when you're singing. I feel it. All these kind of comments I've never heard when I was in Korea. And
Well,
Juilliard,
I agree with those comments because you don't hog the stage, to use an American expression. You are a colleague with your other singer colleagues and the conductors and so on, but you have a natural charisma, which you someone either has or does not have.
mm,
And you do, and you use it, you don't exaggerate it. But I remember, for example, that when you were in Le Notte di Figaro, which has a large cast of wonderful singers, and Luca Pizzaroni, I think, was the count, and therefore you were Barbarina. You worked with the wonderful Luca Pizzaroni. Um, Barbarina doesn't have her aria until the fourth act, and it's only about 2.5 minutes long, and it's the pin aria. I lost the pin. Where's the pin? But I've seen many young singers, Danielle Denise, Dawn Upshaw, many start their careers as Barbarina. And if you're a good Barbarina, you tend to become a Zerlina and other kinds of Gilda, all kinds of leading roles if you're a good Barbarina. So when I go to Le Nozze di Figaro, always wait for the fourth act, not only for the wonderful conclusion, but to hear Barbarina.
mm,
So you were one of those Barbarinas who jumped out at me as someone who was worth watching. I had seen you before in other things, including the leading role in La Sonnambula. It's interesting that you played La Sonnambula because she has a mad scene, but it ends sort of happy in a way. It's not a tragedy, unlike a lot of those bel canto operas with big mad scenes. And so it was a very good casting for you. Um, since you brought it up, I'm going to bring up something, and because I have a story, because I worked in opera for so long. I worked with people who now are, so-called legendary. They're not with us anymore. Are you a good house cleaner?
yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm a good cooker. So during the pandemic, I lost like 80 performances within like 6 months or something like that. And
Hmm.
like I was very good at cook, you know. Okay, my parents were divorced when I was young,
Hmm.
and I learned like through the shoulder of my mom how to cook, and my grandma really like supported me, and so I was very good at that, but I hated it because I thought that's gonna be my life. But
Yeah.
then during the pandemic, I happened to make the kimchi.
Hmm. Which is
I am damn
fermented
good.
cabbage. It's a Korean specialty. Yep.
I was so good. I was literally thinking like maybe I should sell my kimchi. I was at the time in Berlin,
Yep.
and because I have nothing to do, so I got like, maybe I should sell a kimchi. I was really, really good. And
Sure.
like Facebook and like Instagram that is popular nowadays. But when I was a teenager, there was also like chat, like website that called Buddy Buddy. It's like a
Hmm.
chatting group, chatting website. And my my nickname was I'm a good housekeeper. That was my nickname, literally.
Let me tell you why I asked you the question. Because the year would be about 1985 or 86. And a very famous opera singer who was not American, but she had an apartment in New York. She would ask me occasionally if an important singer or musician came to New York and they needed a place. I had the keys to that apartment, and would I enable someone to go reside there, not for pay, but just to be there in this nice apartment on the West Side? And
Mhm.
Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, the incredibly famous German
Mm,
soprano,
yeah.
legendary recording artist, and the Marshall, and everything that she was, by then was a much older artist. And she came to New York, I guess, to teach at Juilliard or maybe at the Met. And I was told to give Elizabeth Schwarzkopf the keys to this apartment. Now, the opera singer who owned the apartment always paid a cleaner to come in before to clean
Mm,
the apartment. I would actually pay the cleaner so that when the guest arrived, the apartment would be perfectly clean.
yeah.
And the
Yeah.
cleaner was excellent. She did a great job. But anyway, when I met Elizabeth Schwarzkopf at Juilliard and we walked to the nearby apartment, I had the keys, and she said to me, I just need to warn you that I like a very clean place to live. And I said, well, don't
Yeah.
worry, Madam Schwarzkopf. We just had it clean yesterday and it's
Yeah.
perfectly clean.
Yeah.
And we arrived, we got in the door, and she said, this is not clean.
Oh my
And
God.
Elizabeth Schwarzkopf took off her beautiful jacket and rolled up her sleeves. And I was able to
Literally
find a
started to
mop
clean.
and a bucket and a broom. And I watched Elizabeth Schwarzkopf clean an apartment. And
Oh
she said,
my
you can
God.
watch and learn. This is how we clean an apartment in
Oh
Germany.
my God.
And
Okay, I'm nothing close to that.
I mean, she was very famous for doing that. I heard, that she's concerned about clean apartments, but I actually
Hygiene.
saw her. What she did was, this is amazing, in the kitchen, which was perfectly clean, I assure you. Um, she went into the cabinets and took out all the dishes and
No, she did
cleaned
not.
the, cleaned the shelves where the dishes were, washed all the dishes, dried them by hand, put all the dishes back in the closet, all the wine glasses, and then went
No
to the
way.
bedroom, remade the bed, even though it had clean sheets on it. She stripped the bed, remade the bed. I was with Elizabeth Schwarzkopf for about 4 hours watching the Marshallin and Donna Elvira clean
Oh my
this very
God.
clean apartment. So
Oh
when
my
people, when
God.
people, there's a rumor about her that she liked to clean. It's true. It's completely true.
That's
But I've
that's
never
insane.
spoken to an
Okay.
opera singer before who said she's a good house cleaner. So you have a sister in the late famous Elizabeth Schwarzkopf.
Oh, what an honor. But I'm nothing close to that. I that was my dream because as a Korean, like
Yeah,
we learned how to sew, how to cook in the
yeah.
school. That was one of the class in Korea, and a man didn't take this class before when I was young. So I thought that's gonna be a good dream, but my dream is an opera singer. I love being on the
Good,
stage, and
good.
if I have a money to be able to pay for the cleaning, I'm sure it should be much, much better than what I can do.
Okay.
So, but
Now,
yeah,
what I want to ask you about in your Met career, which began, we're now 2025, so 8 years ago, you made your Met debut in a small role in Rusalka. Um,
yes.
I noticed that you have had fantastic conductors almost since the beginning, and it's not that every conductor is not wonderful as they come
Mm,
to the Met, but you began at Juilliard with Speranza Scapucci. You had Mark Elder for Rusalka.
yes,
You had Harry Bickett, wonderful Harry
yes,
Bickett, for La Notte di
yes,
Figaro. You had Donald Runnicles, who's a great Wagnerian conductor,
yes,
conducting Hansel and Gretel. You had Mark Wigglesworth for Orfeo ed Euridice. You had Jane Glover, the great Mozartian expert, and she writes about
yes,
Mozart, and she's a go-to expert for your Pamina debut at the Met. And then recently you had the wonderful Daniele Rustioni conducting you
yes,
with Nanetta in Falstaff,
yes.
with Michael Bola singing Falstaff, and you were Nanetta. So that is a rather remarkable lineup of conductors for a young singer.
Yeah, yeah. I am so grateful. I'm so lucky. Every
So
conductors that I went through, they were really motivating me. And recently, I also performed with Gustavo Dudamel.
in Los
And
Angeles, you were in Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
yes, also in New York Phil for his spring gala.
Okay.
And it was I good conductors, wonderful conductors. What I learned is they don't talk much. They
Uh-huh.
show. They show with their eyes, they show with their energy, they show with their hand gesture because they already know what what is their plan, what they want to do. So I'm very sensitive person. I'm really like maybe very spiritual in a way. So I
Hmm.
sense that and I deeply try to connect that. And they just when they just invite me, what my job is just being with them and flow with them because they guide me. And the good conductor also, they're not so fixated. They're so flexible,
Hmm.
and um, they're willing to uh, make difference, you know, and they don't show their ego. I
Hmm.
loved, I loved all the conductors that I worked with. Fortunately, I didn't have many bad experiences.
Hmm.
I don't know if I can continue to talk about Budana, but I think that could be very interesting for you to hear because he taught me two things. So in the New York Phil, we did the Bachianas,
Hmm.
and in New York Phil, I did the Beethoven Ninth Symphony, and it was Dudamel again. Like I grew up watching him, so imagine how much I was excited and nervous and anxious, but at the same time super happy to perform with him. So I practiced so much, and I saw all the YouTube video of Beethoven Ninth Symphony, and I never saw any single person because soprano solo is so difficult. Any single soprano soloist who were smiling and enjoying the singing this line because it's really difficult. You have to focus on this tessitura, and it's a really difficult line. So I was nervous, but then when I went to the rehearsal, he said, let's contage our happiness. And he just started to, show with the hand gesture and then like very happy, very positive. And
Hmm.
I felt like, oh yeah, let's do that. And I started to smile and then sang Beethoven Ninth Symphony like a little kid. And
Hmm.
that was the best singing I've ever sung ever in my life. And and then it was the performance. He was on the podium. The guy that I watched in the YouTube video for several times. He was just like conducting as if he's like a little kid. And if there is a God, I thought like the God would be so happy to see this little boy still enjoying the music and so humble and spreading the happiness and joy to the people in this chaos world. So
Hmm.
I was also like dancing and singing the Beethoven Ninth Symphony with a literally order, a joy. And at the end of the performance, we had a dinner together and we sat together and I shared how I felt and how much he influenced me being so happy on the stage. He taught me remember two things. One, be careful of the experiences, which means I received as the more you experience, the more you get fed up or the more you can be so bored of it,
Hmm.
or you lose the beauty or the humbleness or the happiness. So be careful of your experiences. That was so beautiful as a person who experienced so much. And the
Hmm.
second thing, embrace imperfection. I
Embrace
was like,
imperfection.
I was
Hmm.
awe. I was awe. You know, we are just a human being. We cannot be perfect, but we tend to make ourselves so perfect, and we're so hard on ourselves. We're pushing ourselves to the limit. I'm also like that. But when we're on the stage, we have to embrace every moment with a gratitude, and we have to embrace it.
Hmm.
And that moment was just, I will never forget. And now I'm just so happy that I can sing on the stage
Hmm.
and with this kind of two ideas, even though I'm experiencing more than before, I still feel like there's many things that I can learn in room. It's so humble. And I embrace myself that I'm not perfect, so I'm not hard on myself, but only being so happy. And I'm here to contagion the happiness to the people, to the audience, and for myself. So all these conductors are just really such a inspiration, and I feel so lucky, really lucky.
Now, here's a technical question. When you're in an opera performance, in most cases, the maestro is in the orchestra pit and you see him or her, and you might consult a prompter for guidance on a word or something like that. A prompter being, for people who don't know, that little person who's in the shell, sort of beneath the orchestra pit, who looks at the singers and often throws them a line or brings them back to if they get lost. They're very crucial people in opera. But then there are the conductors who are the maestro, the leader. But when you're on a stage in a concert hall like David Geffen Hall or Disney Hall in Los Angeles, sometimes the singer is has her back to the conductor because she's
Yeah.
standing in front. So how is that different in your experience as a singer when you really don't see the maestro and you have to rely on your ears and other
Yeah.
things because you're not looking at the conductor?
Yeah. Well, like uh for me, like I get a chance to sing a lot of concerts at the same time as much as I'm doing the opera. And I think this is such a great balance because when I'm singing the concert, somehow the conductors give me more freedom to me because there's no frame, literal frame. In the opera, it's all about the promise. It's all about the agreements, and it's the communication with the other colleagues. I am here to serve the music, but also serve the other people so that we can we can increase the beauty of the music together with the maestro, with the director, with the other colleagues, with the choir, with the production, with the costume. This is all framework. So I don't really see or like pay attention to the audience. My energy goes to rather the conductor to the other colleagues when I am making an eye contact, when I'm singing the duet. I really genuinely try to say with the words. So it's really wonderful work that it makes me be very diplomatic and very correct with a little bit of freedom. However, when I'm doing the concert, I see literally the audience. There's no frame. And because of that, actually, I senses each individuals in the audience. Sometimes I really pick one person who is just shining, like sending certain kind of positive energy. My gaze goes to that person, and I literally speaks to her or him.
Mhm.
Um, but then the conductor, I think they really try to feel me. And I try to feel him, of course, but for the concert, I think it's more of the music first and the audience second.
Mhm.
Um, so I get more freedom. I think that's what I wanted to say. Basically, it's really different, and because it's different, so beautiful. It's
I know
really beautiful.
that you have already made two recordings for Deutsche Grammophon, and they are available to Adagio listeners. So people who are subscribed to Adagio can look you up. Your recent album is called Breathe, Breathe. Why is it called Breathe?
Because actually like um year before, so no, it has been like an year since this album came, but this album was planned like 3 years ago when there was still pandemic, and during the pandemic I lost so many beloved people, and it just made me to question myself, what's the life and what's the death, very fundamental question. But the more I go and deep into this question, it made me to be so depressed, and wondered like, is is it like the death supposed to be this depressing and so hard and so sad? And I couldn't understand that it shouldn't be, because life is full, life is beautiful. So I didn't want to focus on the sadness of the death itself. And I happened to research while I was researching. I happened to meet the epitaph of the Psychelos who lost his wife in the first or second century. We don't know exactly what years, but that's the oldest manuscript, music score that is ever discovered. And it goes, while you live, live, while you live, shine, no more grief at all. The time will demand its toll. And when I read this, it just walked me out. Yes, life is still there and it's beautiful. My time will gonna come in my way, but while I'm living here, I have to be able to be happy. Even the first century people, after grieving, he decided to be happy. He decided to live fully. It's not so different now as a person who is living in nowadays, like now. So to grieve myself, I walked the Camino de Santiago for about 1 month by myself with a backpack after Glyndebourne, La Noche de Figaro. And on the way, I had a dream that I was in the water, and I was breathing inside in the water so comfortably, so peacefully, and all the chaos stopped. And that dream was white and black. But once I went inside the water, the dream became the colorful dreams. And I felt like, oh, I should do the free diving to make a music video because I'm again a little bit spiritual. I felt like maybe there's some reason for it that I was able to breathe in the water, which I'm not supposed to. And I started to take the course, free diving course. In the beginning, your body is literally out of the breath, so like shaking to your brain, like literally the brain is saying like you're gonna die if you stay a little longer. You're gonna literally finish your life here. So come up to the water, come up out of the water. But then not to the brain. If you're talking to yourself, your being saying like, no, your brain is lying to you. You have more ability. You have a more power. Just be calm, listen yourself. You are capable of being in the water even longer. Then suddenly all the shake stops and you go to this Zen mode and you stop worrying about it and you're able to stay 2, 3, 4 minutes more. And when I experienced that, the concept of the breath was just the whole new thing. It was all inside in me. The life without breath, it's not possible. The life is finished without the breath, but ourself is stronger, so we can. Like this whole thing was just so beautiful for me. So I needed to name as a breath, and wanted to share this story that we are so powerful and life is so full. And even though the death seemed like um, the darkness, but actually behind your brain, there's some kind of beauty that is waiting for you. The
Mm-hmm.
peace and the calmness and the surrender. So that was the reason why I made this album called Brave. And actually, I got many great awards. So I am so grateful and so happy because it meant a lot to me. It was my way of grieving. And it was very personal journey, but I am very grateful and thankful that it also rang to many people in the world. And I got really wonderful messages from the people who've been going through a lot of difficult times. So I think, I don't know,
Well,
I'm very happy.
you I love the album. I had no idea what was on it until I listened. You have Goretzky and Orff and Engelbert Humperdinck and Rossini and Verdi and Massenet and Delibes. So it's a very diverse album. And thematically, I think the theme is about uh, finding your breath, actually, when I think about a lot of the different characters and ideas that are presented on this album. Two other things came to mind as you were talking just now. One of them is in English and perhaps other languages, there's an expression that we say all the time, but we don't think about. That is, as I live and breathe, so that when we put together breathe, it goes with living, that you cannot do one without the other. So that's the first one. And the second is you mentioned that you
Mm,
did the Camino, which is this walk that many people do in northern Spain in the province or the region of Galicia. And for many people, the big stop is Santiago de Compostela, which is this gorgeous town in northern Spain. What is
mm,
particular to me about that whole trip, I didn't do it officially, but I've been in all those places, is I've never been to a place apart from Santiago de Compostela where the air is so beautiful. And I've described this elsewhere when I've been in conversations. There's something very creamy about the air in Santiago de Compostela. And I remember
mm,
being alerted to the fact that I'm breathing incredibly well here in Santiago, and I never quite knew why. Part of it is that you have the Bay of Biscay right there, and there are these cliffs, and the water hits against the cliffs so that the oxygen that's released from the waves rises up, and that's why Santiago has so much oxygen right there. And so I find it fascinating and wonderful and interesting and
wow.
coincidental that you,
Thank you for
after doing,
sharing. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
that you would, after doing that walk, would find the theme of breathing to be the unifying principle of the album that you created. So, listeners, Adagio listeners, if you're a member, you can go right now. If you're not, join, and it's worth it anyway. You have 2 million recordings to hear, but one of them is this one, which is a very beautiful. I'm not saying that because you're my guest, because I've had many guests on who have recordings, and I don't always talk about their recordings. But in this particular case, um, it was not just beautiful musicianship, but there was a lot behind it that I didn't quite know, and but you just explained it incredibly well. So I appreciate that. Um, I know that we have to conclude soon, so I have another question for you, and then we'll go. You are about to do a role that I think is your first time in the role, The Cunning Little Vixen by Janacek,
Oh,
and which is a very it's a wonderful role. You're doing it at the Des Moines Opera, which is in Iowa in the United States. It's a wonderful summer festival, very distinguished festival. And it's the starring role, but it's not La Sonnambula. She's not Gilda. She's not these other roles that are starring roles. It's not Pamina, which you're singing now. It is I don't want to give too much away for people going. There's comedy, but there's also the reality of nature and the forces of nature in that opera, and what
mm,
the cunning little vixen faces as being a female fox out in the world dealing with the
mm.
element. Um, have you begun already studying the part or not yet?
Here in New York, while I'm here, there's like because Czech is really like the language that I only the Czech that I sang was in Rosarica.
Yes.
So I don't really know the Czech. So here while I'm in New York, now I just started to read the text with the coach that I met here in New York. So it's ongoing and it's challenging.
Mhm.
The first few lines is like really like rapper. It's really fast,
Yeah.
but the music is so glorious and the character I love. And the Czech is actually, I think Czech is a very good language to be able to sing well. It's all the time on the air.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's too soon for me to be able to say all these things. How do I feel about the, you know, um, the whole opera because I didn't really get into deeply the music deeply yet. I
Right.
didn't really
And the
have like
rehearsals.
enough analysis. But for now, I'm just reading the text and I listened a lot of recording. I saw a lot of YouTube the whole video clips of the productions
Hmm.
and I think it's gonna be perfect for my voice.
Yes,
It's
I think it
really
will.
suitable for my voice. My voice had been lyrical a lot since 9 years ago. Now I'm singing. I see myself singing more like a like a lot of French music, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so Connie Dixon, that voice, the lyrical voice is gonna be really suiting my soul. I'm very much looking forward to it.
She's a very powerful character. She seems like a cute little girl in a way, but
Oh,
she is a lot more than that. It's about nature, it's about dealing with the world and the challenges
yeah.
of dealing with the world, except she's a little fox. So people think it's a children's opera. It's a lot.
Mm,
It's a very beautiful work. Janacek is one of the great underappreciated composers, even though he's being discovered more now for Yanov, for Katya Kabanov, and those other operas that are
yes,
masterpieces. But even in Janacek's work, The Cunning Little Vixen is a thing
right.
apart
I
because,
really want to see you in person again, and I would
yeah,
love to get all this like knowledge from you because I
okay,
know you've been in this world forever,
yes.
and your knowledge, your wisdom is just so magnificent, and I'm happy to learn. I would love to get all this beautiful insights, and I'm just so sad the time is really, ticking. But
Well, you
please
bring a
give me
jar
some
of
chance.
kimchi. Bring
Yeah.
a jar.
Yes, please, Fred. I know you're very busy, but I really respect you so much.
Thank
Since
you.
like long ago, I've been seeing you time to time at the Met, in
Yes.
Juilliard. Your face always was all over the places. And I really am grateful that finally we got a chance to be able to talk. But I'm sure that there's many, many more stories that you can share and yeah, teach me. So
Well, that would be my
please,
pleasure. And I do want
please.
listeners to learn who you are. Hera Hyesang Park from Korea, but now singing in Germany and England, walking the trails in Spain, and singing at the Metropolitan Opera and Los Angeles and Iowa and Buenos Aires. I forgot to mention that you sang in Buenos Aires at
Oh,
the
that
Teatro
was
Colón,
beautiful. Have
which
you
is
ever been?
I worked there in 1988, 89, and then again in the 2000s. I worked on a
Wow.
production of Electra in 1988.
Oh,
Amazing.
wow.
And
No,
so,
Buenos
yeah,
Aires was such a theater.
it's maybe, I don't want to say the best theater. I worked at La Scala, I worked at the Met, and I loved the Met, but there was something very special about the Teatro Cologne that I've not experienced in any other
Yeah.
theater in the world. The
What
audience was
kind of
very
experience you
particular.
had?
Yeah. Well, it was the audience was so educated, but also very passionate, but not
Mm-hmm,
indiscriminate. They understood a great singer when they saw a great singer in front of them. Other
mm-hmm,
theaters,
mm-hmm,
sometimes they're a little too quick to judge, but the
mm-hmm,
Argentines were very appreciative, but
mm-hmm,
also very serious. And also,
mm-hmm.
as a backstage person, I can tell you that the quality of the craft, in other words, the costumes, especially the
Uh-huh.
costumes, the scenery and everything, but the costumes were magnificent because what you
Yeah.
have in Argentina are people, many of them of Italian background, but you also have, if you have cows, you have leather. If you have sheep, if you have a lot of sheep in Argentina, you have wool. The costumes were
Yeah. Yeah.
spectacular. The way they were
Yeah.
made, the needlework was like nothing I've seen in any other theater,
Wow.
including Milan, including Paris. I've never
Mm-hmm,
seen needlework like that, and the
mm-hmm,
dedication to the quality of every aspect of a costume. The lighting
mm-hmm.
was okay. It was not, that was not the strength, but the scenery was excellent, but especially the costumes. I remember working with singers and saying, this costume will tell you your character. And the
Oh,
costume
really?
designer
Was
in
that not?
Argentina was in a way more important than some of the other designers because in this case, a woman,
Mm-hmm.
she she was able to use the costumes to tell the singers a lot about their characters. And so
Uh,
that's the great thing in the opera world is that wherever we travel, we learn from other people and then we try to pass that on
right.
so that, I can tell you how Elizabeth Schwarzkopf cleans the glass. But I can, but I can also tell you how Tito Gobi develops a character because I studied with Tito Gobi. So, the goal of this is it's not bragging, it's that all this is
No,
put
please
in us.
brag.
So no,
Mhm.
no, no. So it's put in us so that we can pass it on to you, and then you can pass
Yes,
it
that's
on
liter
to the next people.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's what I meant
that's
when I
why.
said that you worked with these magnificent conductors at the beginning of your career, which not every singer can say. But
Mm,
I mean, you're very fortunate, and I know you're gonna make a lot of good use of what you learned from Harry Bickett, Jane Glover, Donald Runnicles at the very beginning of your career, and
yeah.
Gustavo Dudamel and Speranza
And
Scapucci.
also James Levine.
What did you do with James Levine in the Young Artist
So
Program, the Lindemann Young Artist
yes.
Program? Yeah.
Oh, he also gave me amazing insights. So, when I was a young artist, he was still there. And he always told me that I have to sing Traviata. I am the voice of Violetta. So he
Hmm.
always coached me and prepared me to sing Traviata. And one of the day, um, he, I sang Estrano, and he told me that um, you are like a Meryl Streep kind of actress. You
Hmm.
really know how to act. And let's say if you never died before and you don't know how do you feel about that, or like let's say you never experienced of a certain kind of situation in the opera, what would you do? And I said, like when I did the La Sonnambula, I literally studied about the sleeping walk,
Right.
like what's the emotion, what's the cause, and what do they do, how do they walk, how do they, I really tried to learn all these things. But that is kind of difficult to learn. But he told me that everyone has their own radio emails. And sometimes we have to turn off the radio of ours and erase all the notation. I mean, all the notes that you put in your manuscript, erase all the notes that I gave you, James Levine gave you, erase everything, and see what the great composer wrote for you, and then try
Yeah.
to see the real treasure inside instead of searching from the note that you made. And volume up of this notation.
Hmm.
And once you are able to see this fundamental basic manuscript, once you are able to follow it, you don't even need to like really trust it. You just follow the guidance that they just put for you.
Yeah.
Then rise your radio, your own volume of your own radio, and make it balance together. Then it's gonna
Hmm.
be your art with the composition, the music itself. And that was also such a great lesson that I learned. So what I
Hmm.
now do is sometimes I put a lot of notes like from the great conductors or the directors, but then sometimes a little bit lost or like too overwhelmed, or like when we're repeating too much too many times, then we don't really understand what we're doing. It just comes without so much thoughtfulness or the honesty or the sincerity. Then I erase everything,
Hmm.
and try to, because I'm sure it's already in my soul. So I
Yeah.
erase and then make it blank and start from the beginning again, because of what James Levine taught me. And now I'm doing
I
that
mean, I studied
very
with him. I
soon
was very
in
fortunate. We
January.
all learned from him. What I was going to say to you was something similar to what you're reporting, namely Verdi in general, La
Mm,
Traviata in particular. Verdi in the orchestra tells you everything you need to know about Violetta. The words are great.
mm,
Addio del passato, Estrano, all those famous words. You can put the words aside till later with La Traviata and only listen to the orchestral part and read the orchestral part. And it's all there because we understand from the very first note of the prelude who this woman is. And Verdi put it
yeah,
there for Violetta. I think more than any, this is my
yeah.
opinion, more than any role in all of Verdi, maybe Gilda in a certain way and Rigoletto in a certain way, in a very different way, Falstaff. But
Mhm.
Violetta, I think more than any other character in Verdi, we understand her through what the orchestra plays. And,
Mhm.
listen to that just on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, just the orchestral parts.
Mhm.
And, yes, you can hear singers, pick your violetta of choice. You can hear them sing on recording, but don't watch other violettas. Um, I've seen many wonderful violettas. I'm going to name two of recent times. One of them was Anya Harteros, and the other was Lisette Oropeza. Um, I saw Lisette was the last performance I saw at the Met before as the pandemic was arriving. And
Yeah.
if memory serves, it was February 26th of 2020. And then we knew that the pandemic was coming. And the way
Mhm.
Lisette played that character, you knew that she was gathering the outside world into her performance, but she
Uh-huh.
didn't act the pandemic. She acted Violetta and she sang
Yeah,
Violetta. And it was very
that's
impressive
beautiful.
because, and I mean this in the best way, she didn't do that much. She didn't have to do that much. Many Violettas, oh grandio, they do these gestures. That's not what Violetta would do. And
Mm.
Violetta would do less and let the music support her performance. So that when in the
Amen.
end of the opera or the end of the last scene, when you hear her say very weakly, Anina, just those notes, that cadence of notes and the way Violetta says Anina, calling for the last person in the world who was stuck with her when everybody
Yeah.
else is gone. It's only Anina and the doctor who have remained. And um, there's an important moment. You and I can talk about this another time because I know you have your appointment. But um, when I've worked on productions, I always work with the doctor because he has a very important moment when he
Mm.
comes and we see on his face that Violetta will not live. And instead of saying arrivederci, I'll see you later,
Dio.
the first
Mhm.
time the doctor says addio, which means farewell. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
he quickly adds a più tardi. He corrects
Più
himself.
tardi. Yeah.
But the problem is that most baritones or bass baritones who sing this, no one teaches them that that's such an important moment because he
Wow,
has
yeah,
let the
yeah.
audience know that she's dying. And he
Wow, that's
realizes
so,
he
yeah.
maybe has let her know
Mm.
that she's dying. So at that moment, when she
Oh,
suddenly hears it, that's the moment when she understands that she's actually dying. And,
oh,
then there's a brief
that
moment,
breaks
ma
my
io
heart.
sento rinasce, rinasce, when she feels that she's coming back and the
Yeah,
surge of the strings.
that's,
But it's actually the moment with the doctor that's the most important outside of Violetta in that scene, not the
oh,
return of Alfredo. It's the doctor right there because he's the
one
one
of
who tells
my,
her, yeah,
one of my friend, he lost his mom.
hmm
Actually, we just talked about it because now I'm preparing Traviata. And
yeah,
he told me that it's very heartbreaking to hear and to play this because his mom last word was literally like, I'm thirsty. I would love to get some water.
yeah,
During this Anina and the Violetta scene,
yeah,
dammi l'acqua, what is I don't remember the text, but literally she's saying like, let me go have some drink
hmm
because I'm thirsty.
right,
And like all these details, it seems like really realistic. And it really touches. Wow, I feel like so moved.
yeah,
Um, that's really the beauty of the opera that we don't, as you said, we don't need to do too much because it's already there.
yeah.
And
The moment
people,
where Violetta asks, they have 20 whatever the scudi or whatever francs, whatever they have the money, they have 20
yeah,
and give give it to the poor. The music
yeah,
when Violetta says give it to the poor and Anina protests because it's all we have left. No,
yeah,
give it half of it to the poor
yeah,
is says so much about her. And it's at that moment too we have to listen to what Verdi wrote because
right,
in
right.
our modern world, when people go to an opera or a film and they read projected titles, they think that's the story. In opera, the story is in the music first. And when I take people who need to learn opera or want to learn opera, I usually start with either Rigoletto or La Traviata because the music is so completely expressive. In Rigoletto, I know you've sung
Yeah.
Gilda. When Rigoletto says, "E tutta la mia famiglia," Gilda is my entire family, is the most
Yes.
heartbreaking line to me in the whole opera. Not all the other
Right.
sadder ones. E tutta la mia famiglia. For an Italian, and not only, that is heartbreaking. And
Right. Right.
so this is why I know, darling, you have an appointment.
Now I want to talk to you more. It's so fun.
We continue,
I don't want to
but
go.
I know, keep up the good work. You've given a lot of pleasure to many people in your young career. I think now many listeners will know why and how you reach what you reach when you do your performances. Because as I said, the first time I saw you at Juilliard when you were still a student, I thought this is someone that I have to watch and I have to follow and I have to listen to. And I was right.
Thank you. There is
So thank
always
you.
this moment in life, but because of people who trust me, I continue, growing myself and developing myself because I don't want to give up because I love singing for myself, but also to the people who trust me and to believe in me.
Hmm.
People who believe in me. It's great honor and great privilege to be able to sing for people, and I will never give up. Life is always up and down, I understood. But as much as I'm remaining as who really I am and so honest to myself, and as Dudamel said, as James Levine said, dedicating my life with the beauty of the music and being humble and embrace who really I am, I'm sure I can go farther and be able to contagion the happiness to the world. I really want to contribute to that. I think art is so beautiful, and I'm so lucky. And I'm so lucky to be able to talk with like people like you, who is inspiring me and motivating me.
Pleasure
It's
is
so
all mine.
nice. It's so
Hera
wonderful. I
Hyesang Park.
really
This is
want to
just the
see
beginning.
you.
I will see you again. You bring the kimchi and I'll clean the glasses. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Take care. Oh, good. Take
Thank you
care.
so much. Much,
You
much
too.
love. All the best.
And
Get
Happy New Year to
warm.
everyone listening. Maybe a year
Happy
full of
New
peace and prosperity and human understanding. Take care.
Year. Correct. Amen. Thank you so much.
You